Well, it is Mother's Day in 2013, not only in Hendersonville, but everywhere around the country. And I called my mother this morning and wished her a happy Mother's Day. And, you know, I tell you, it's very interesting because when I tell people some of the stories of my past, and you know, you could be mortified, or you know, it's very funny actually. But you know, it's you know, my mother is. If I was to sum her up in one word, it would be unique. I mean, she's definitely. She did not care what other people thought ever. I mean, she was her own woman, her own mind, and you know, my father is meticulous and still is at 89 years old. He dresses. You know, he's the type that will always wear a sport coat. I remember we used to go on vacations. He'd wear a suit to drive on vacation and a hat, and I'd be like, wow, you know, that's interesting. And then my mom would be in sweatpants, and that was 40 years ago. So it was, and she's still like that, and she doesn't care. And I used to be like, Mom, come on. She goes, I don't care what other people think, and she doesn't. And I respect that so much more now than I realize. But you know, when I was younger, it was like, well, you know, why don't you do this or do that? She goes, I don't want to. You know, she liked to garden. She liked to, you know, hang out with the kids, and that was about it. She wasn't really much into some of the things a lot of my friends' mothers were into. But what she was into is she used to always go to the city market. And some of you may have heard this story before, but it's when I look back, I know where I got certain genes from. Because she went to the city market, and not to buy vegetables, but there was a fella there named Catfish. And Catfish was a toothless, you know, hillbilly from West Virginia, and he was a wise old man, and he was, I think, an astrologer. And she would go there and constantly have readings with him, and they were big buds. And you know, she'd come home with these stacks of books and her horoscopes and everything. And you know, we were the kids who actually, for birthdays and Christmas, she'd buy a Ouija board. You know, like, you know, so we were like, you know, and now it's like that would be like for some parents. But you know, we grew up 5 years old playing with Ouija boards, and it was like fun. And you know, anything like with fortune telling, there's little 8 balls, you know, we'd be like, oh, what is it? Am I going to go on vacation? Yes, no, maybe. Am I going to get a new bike? No. And, you know, so all those things were, you know, part of my experience growing up. Well, what's so funny is I have also shared in the past that, you know, the church I grew up in was a Methodist church. I think my family had gone there for, well, they're still there. It's got to be the 5th or 6th generation that's going there now. And it's so funny. I mean, on Sundays, I can go there when I'm visiting, and the same pews I sat in as a child, my cousins and their grandchildren are sitting in those pews, and it's really neat, you know, it's pretty cool. And so I had both those experiences. And so I think that those made me maybe well-rounded and open-minded. And I am grateful for that, you know, because I didn't have all that doctrine and dogma plowed into my mind. So I'm really, really grateful for that. You know, I recognize, and I wish that, and I didn't realize how grateful I was until I got older. I think like all of us can relate to that. But my parents, and my mother was always a softie. I mean, she'll say yes to anything even now. And I wanted to play golf. And when I first started playing golf, it was just supposed to be something fun. Well, when my parents saw that it was becoming more than just a fun weekend thing, they were like, okay. They were very supportive. I would literally go to AAA. I would book at age 12, I would book my flights to Arkansas, Mississippi, and I'd just say, charge them to my dad. And, and I'd come back and say, Dad, I'm going to Arkansas next week. And I'd send in my own little money for my golf tournaments and everything. And, you know, they didn't know what hit them. I mean, they were like, my God, you know, what's this kid doing? But they thought it was kind of good that I had ambition and was doing something. And I certainly wasn't I mean, if I got one thing my parents did was they were very the least little accomplishment, like, oh, a C, no D's or F's on this. Not really, but, I mean, they were, I was not a real scholarly type. And actually, not to digress, but last week when Doug, in the afternoon seminar, he said, "You're a very intellectual woman." If I told my parents that, they would pee in their pants. So it's just, it's very, but I did, but I was into golf, but then I got college scholarship offers and went to college. And when it came time that I was deciding to make a career out of it, they're like, I think the party's over. No one can make a career playing golf or teaching golf, so, let's get real now, go to college and get a degree. But they knew that conversation didn't really work out, so I was grateful to have their support, and even though they didn't understand it, my mother was always encouraging, "Oh, Kermit, just let her do it. She seems to like it, and she seems to be pretty good at it." And so I did that for a number of years and had a very good career. Well, when I left golf to open the center in Florida, I had a break when I left golf and just was doing that until my money ran out and went back to teaching golf. But the first thing my mother said was, "Don't you think you want to get back into golf?" So, yeah, it's like, no, not a, but I did. So, but I don't want to digress. But I laugh, and I know a few years ago, if you were at my parents' house, their house sits up on a hill, and they have this driveway that's like this. It's very steep. And my mother always would have a big pile of mulch dropped at the bottom of the hill by the creek. And she would go down, now this is at 75 years old, she'd go down there and shovel that in, and she'd pull that wheelbarrow up the hill. And so I'm like, "Mom, don't do that. I'll get one for you." And so I couldn't even make it up the hill. I couldn't believe it. So, and she's little. So it's so funny that I look back, and even when I go back to walk into the bank to do some business where my dad still sort of works, I'll walk in and they'll go, "Dorothy, is that you?" They think I'm like, "No, she's 90. No, she's 83, but thank you. You look just like your mother." So I don't think I look 83, but maybe to some people. But anyway, so it does, and I focus on this, and I say this, and I keep those warm, fuzzy memories, and I also I don't choose to hang on to some of the less than wonderful memories. And I'm not saying anything was horrific, anything terrible, but I think we all have our challenges, and my mother did too. And if I had allowed myself to focus on certain aspects, it would be a whole different story. It would be like, "Oh, Charlie, you poor thing, I can't believe your mom, left you here, or whatever, forgot to pick you up at kindergarten," whatever it was. "Oh, you poor baby," it's just, or, whatever the story is. I think we all have both sides of the story. And the point is I really believe that the quote from A Course in Miracles, and one that I referred to in the meditation, being, "All your past except its beauty is gone, and all that remains is a blessing." I think there's so much power in that statement for us to really be willing to just, as Terry Wetton said, focus on the good stuff. He sang that song about his, and last week at the concert, he said, "Oh, and Charlotte McGinnis, she always talks about this, keep the good, all your past, just take the good stuff." And I'm saying, well, that's not exactly the quote, but close enough. And but anyway, it is true. We have a choice. And, I'm sure that, well, I guess, did anybody have June Cleaver for a mother? Here that, who, Jim did?
Yes.
Yay, Jim. No, that's why you're so perfect. That's right.
I'll check with her on that.
There you go. But I would say that the majority of us didn't have June Cleaver, unless I'm missing somebody. So I certainly didn't have the baked cookies to come home to, and the lunch packed for me, and whatever. I mean, we had to we had what we had, and you just made do with it, and that was what it was. So I really am encouraging all of us, not, today being Mother's Day, and I do think with, the role of our mothers in our lives determine so much of who we are, just like the role of our fathers in our lives determine so much of who we are. And if we allow ourselves to focus on, all the mistakes they made, which are can be many, rather than those gifts that they brought us. Because as we all know, whether we like it or not, we've chosen our parents. Anyone not ready to take that one on? But it's so true. I believe, before we come in, we've chosen our parents, we've chosen our siblings, we've chosen this moment here today. We've made all these decisions, as Shelley told us in astrology a few weeks ago, which I really knew it at some level, but when you get it at another level, that we could actually take our charts and it would be in the charts that exactly this group of people was going to meet here today, and that includes even little Stella. The fact that Stella was even, she would even be in our chart today. And there is nothing is by chance in the universe. And it's so, we've made these agreements. And so we've chosen, if we can look at these relationships that we've chosen, and everywhere that we are is perfect. And that when our mothers, they taught us exactly the lessons that we needed to learn, or we chose to learn. So it's certainly empowering, I think. It offers maybe an opportunity for forgiveness, because just if we choose to hang on to the bad stuff, then that's going to be our experience and certainly have an effect in our life as well. So it is a choice for sure. As I go back, I'm grateful I didn't grow up. I know some of you all grew up with "what will people think?" Is that something that that you all heard before? Yeah. Okay. So, what will people think? And thank God I didn't have that one. And my dad, I think just because he was cheap, he was a banker. And I'd say, well, so-and-so got that car. He's like, I said, what will people think? He goes, I don't care what people think. And so that would never work. But I don't care what people think. You ain't getting it. And I want those new golf clubs. I don't care. Anyway, some of these, I thought this was kind of cute, and I didn't actually have some of these, but I've heard people say many of these mother sayings here. What part of no don't you understand? I don't care who started it. Now, I did hear that one a lot. It was like, I don't care who started it. Wait till your father gets home. Your face is going to freeze like that. No one said life was fair. Go to your room. Beds are for sleeping, not jumping. Eat your vegetables. I don't know is not an answer. And because I said so, that's why. So those are some of the famous mother quotes that I found here. And I think that, it is fun. And it is a choice. And it is a day not only to rejoice and give gladness to our mothers, but also if you are a mother or grandmother, really take this opportunity to forgive yourself for anything you wish you could have done better or whatever. Because the bottom line is we all do the best we can do in the moment, even though sometimes it doesn't seem like it. So it's give that gift to yourself today as well if you're a mother and there's something you choose to change. Because we can, as we learned from our beautiful minister who trained us, Barbara Henshaw, and then now it's kind of, you hear it everywhere, that when she talked about, someone had mentioned, she was talking about forgiveness and letting go of your past, and along the lines of the quote, all your past except its beauty is gone. And then some gal was like, well, I can't because my mother was, and Barbara was like, country, get over it. She said, if you had a crappy childhood, write a new story, make up a new one. And, at first I was a little startled, but I get it now so strongly. And I think that to write a new story, if you didn't have the clothes you wanted, write a story and envision yourself having the perfect clothes, all the stuff you wanted, whatever it was that you feel like you didn't have. Because the past has only the meaning we give it. And we can do that for ourselves and others. You know, we can see ourselves where we've made mistakes. We can write a new story for ourselves. We can see ourselves in where our mothers have made mistakes, write a new story for them. Because it really boils down to it's a lesson in forgiveness always. And forgiveness means that I'm willing to let go of any angst, any judgment that I have about anything. And when I allow myself to do that, I'm freeing everybody. Everybody is blessed by that gesture. And it's a great gift. Now, being from West Virginia, did you all know Mother's Day started in West Virginia? Yeah, y'all did. Morgan knew. Morgan's like a walking Wikipedia. How did you know that?
It was on NPR this morning.
That's right. Well, see.
Is that where Hallmark cards started?
No, that's Kansas City.
Kansas City, you know, but it's but I found this actually on Wikipedia, and I think it's well, West Virginia, of course, it got my attention because we get noted for the Hatfields and McCoys, and you know that story with me too. I'm a Hatfield. My mother's a Hatfield. I forgot to tell her that one. Truly, she is a Hatfield, Dorothy Hatfield, and my grandfather was Homer Hatfield. And but anyway, not to go back, but that was certainly a mother tidbit about Mom. But this is great. This is from Wikipedia, and I think it's very interesting. And like I said, it got my attention because of West Virginia. And it says, at first glance, Mother's Day appears a quaint and conservative holiday, a sort of greeting card moment honoring 1950s values, a historical throwback to the old-fashioned notions of hearth and home. Let's correct that impression by saying Happy Radical Mother's Day. In May 1907, Anna Jarvis, a member of the Methodist congregation in Grafton, West Virginia, passed out 500 white carnations in church to commemorate the life of her mother. 1 year later, the same Methodist church created a special service to honor their mothers. Many progressive and liberal Christian organizations like the YMCA and the World Sunday School Association picked up the cause and lobbied Congress to make a Mother's Day national holiday. And in 1914, Democratic President Woodrow Wilson made it official and signed Mother's Day into law. Thus began the modern celebration of Mother's Day in the United States. For some years, radical Protestant women had been agitating for a national Mother's Day, hoping it would further a progressive political agenda that favored issues related to women's lives. In the late 19th century, Julia Ward Howe, better known for the Battle Hymn of the Republic, expressed this hope in her 1870 prose poem, A Mother's Day Proclamation Calling Women to Pacifism and Political Resistance. So, you know, it's not what we thought it was. It wasn't created that. And this poem that she wrote was actually intended for the mothers of those who had sons at war. And as I said, better known for the Battle Hymn of Republic. And the poem is beautiful. It says, "Arise then, women of this day. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be of water or of tears. Say firmly, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe our dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each bearing after his own time the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God." Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. And it sounds like a prayer that, or a poem that can be shared in any group today as well. And goes on to say, years later, Ann Jarvis intended the new holiday to honor all mothers, beginning with her own, who had who had died in 1905. Although now largely forgotten, Anna Jarvis was a social activist and community organizer who shared the political views of other progressive women. In 1858, Jarvis organized poor women in West Virginia to Mother's Day work clubs to raise the issue of clean water and sanitation in relation to the lives of women and children. She also worked for universal access to medicine for the poor. Reeves Jarvis was also a pacifist who served on both sides in the Civil War by working for camp sanitation and medical care for soldiers of the North and South. Although I've never seen it on a pastel flowered greeting card, Mother's Day honors a progressive, feminist, inclusive, nonviolent vision for the world community, born in the imagination of women who devoted themselves to God, not Caesar. Isn't that amazing? Did any of y'all know that besides Morgan? And oh, good, I shared something with you because it was such a. I felt like, you know, that would be. It is all fluff, you know. It's like send the candy and the flowers, and sure, you know, yes, let's honor our mothers and be grateful for our mothers. But you know, the idea that they were activists and they did things to help the poor and they supported each other. It brings a whole deeper meaning, I believe, of Mother's Day to me, in my understanding. So a few things here. When I think of mother, I also think of my dear friend Ma Jaya, who died a little over a year ago. It's hard to believe. She was a Hindu woman. I'm going to talk more about this next week. I will give you a little insight, though. I was very involved with the ashram, but Kashi Ashram in Florida. And Ma was her, you know, she went by Ma Jaya, and she was everybody's mother. It was really what she professed herself to be and was. And not only those who came to the ashram, but the communities that she served in Florida and Africa, orphanages. I mean, amazing woman. And just a little tidbit on next week. She gave me a Hindu name, and what I never really expected it because I wasn't a devotee. It was more of a friendship we had. And she gave me this name, and of course I didn't even really much understand what it was about or what was going on. I liked the kirtan and the music and the chanting and loved her, and so I liked a lot about it, but I wasn't a devoted student of her teachings by any means. So she gave me the name Ahimsa, which I was like, oh, everyone's like, Ahimsa. She gave you the name Ahimsa. I'm like, yeah, that's a cool name. I like it. And I never got, unfortunately, while she was here, and I know she's here still, I never understood how meaningful that was. And I had, just a few months back, I had a reading. I'm not really much into readings, but a friend was so enthusiastic over this woman, I said, okay, I'll do it. And I'll be darned, she said, well, who would you like to connect with on the other side? And I said, well, how about Ma? And I told her a little bit about Ma. And first this woman says, Ma wants to know why you're not using that name she gave you. And so I was like, okay, Ma's there. And so it's very cool. But, you know, again, she was such a teacher of the feminine energy, the divine feminine, and you know what we're really needing to do. And I believe where we've gotten so out of balance with the masculine and feminine energies on the planet, that you know that yin and yang is the balance of the masculine and feminine in all of us. We are, I believe, going back to the feminine, the more healing aspect of ourselves, and the more nurturing and more giving and loving aspect. It's not so externally driven. I think some people may be, but I think that there are people waking up to choosing balance. And again, it's not a gender as much as it is an energy and a balance of those energies. But I really just think this is a great day to, you know, take time to reflect and give gratitude to our mothers. And of course we can't, we have Kuan Yin over here on the altar, who I love her energy as well. And of course we can't forget Mother Mary. And when you know it, a friend of mine just 2 days ago on the radio, she was on our radio show, Robin Rose is her name. and she channels Mother Mary. So Mother Mary's message was interesting, and it was very simple, because the more we get to know who God is, the more, and since we are reflections of that, the more we can become that. So think about who is God to you, and if we can see God as a perfection, a being of love, and know that that is just a mirror of us. That's our real role, is to know who God is, because in knowing God, then we'll know ourselves. And I thought that was a powerful yet simple message. And no matter what angle we tried to take it on the radio shows, she just came back to that. Get to know God better. And so that is Mother Mary's message. And I do want to close with this prayer. I found it online, and I think it's awesome. I just love it. And I hope you do too. My prayer for mothers and daughters everywhere is that each of us be willing to support each other as we birth the highest and best lives possible. That we learn to honor and respect each other without requiring undue sacrifice. That we become willing to forgive each other for the pain and the hurt we may have unwittingly caused each other. That we honor each other as powerful teachers. That we know our fierce mother bear wisdom lives in every cell of our bodies and is always available, even when our own mothers are not. That we know we can call on our grandmothers for guidance whenever we need it. And finally, the mother-daughter relationships of the future become so steadfast and supportive that when a woman says, "I'm becoming just like my mother," she will beam with pride, and her friends and family will proclaim, "Well done." And so it is. Namaste. Well done, everybody.